Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation, where right and left come to be reasonable. So it seems as though our collective fate vis-a-vis the regime in Iran played out in 3 tweets from President Trump. Each presents a known and an unknown that matter. So let's go through them. The most recent is the best if it is true, because it suggests the least violence. The president tweets, Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire that will begin at midnight tonight in what he is calling now the end of the 12-day war. Let's stop there. Odd the president would call this a war when he doesn't consider his decision to bomb Iran unilaterally an official act of war. But that is a testament to our current state of politics. There is no real logical consistency. It's all advantage all the time. Regardless, if this is true, if there is a ceasefire, and I have to say if, because the president has shown in recent days, let alone always, that he can say things that are not to be taken for the truth of the matter asserted. And neither side has confirmed the ceasefire yet. But, if it happens, this would be the biggest foreign policy achievement for the president in this administration. You can argue with how it came about, whether it were necessary or even legal. But here we are. If there's a ceasefire, it's got to be seen as a win. Now, where does it lead? How long? Who knows? I want to deal with a more immediate question. Did our bombing work? Well, yes, if you now want to define the rationale for it as bringing a ceasefire, but that's not what we were told going into it, right? That takes us to the second tweet. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected and have very effectively countered. 14 missiles fired, 13 knocked down, 1 was let go because it wasn't going anywhere important. Obliterated is the word. Do we know that? No. Yes, the Iran attack was weak. We know that. The regime has been crushed. Israel has been destroying its proxies and its capabilities with these most recent bombings, but they damaged the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. So Iran is weak, and now a lot of their air systems were dismantled by Israel. Now we get to our part. There's no confirmation that we obliterated their nuclear facilities. Reports say that senior U.S. officials believe we did not destroy the Fordow nuclear facility deep underground, and it may have been only severely damaged. How do they know that? I don't know. And right now, we have no idea if we actually destroyed their 400 kilograms of enriched uranium. Iran says they moved it prior to this weekend's attacks. Do we know that? No. We don't know what happened to them, and we don't know if they moved them because they're liars. So, do we know why we bombed? Unless you're saying it's about the ceasefire. The ceasefire may now be looked at as the reason for the bombings. But there was a mixed message, to be sure, right? Between, no, we're doing this to destroy the nukes. The regime cannot have nuclear weapons. I agree with that premise. I have been light on criticism of even the apparently gray area of legality of this unilateral decision by the President of the United States, because I don't have a better idea. And I haven't heard of any better idea to get rid of the prospect of the regime having nukes. That is my criticism of the MAGA schism and the pod bros who are hyper-isolationist and saying that he should be impeached for doing this. If you accept that the regime can't have nukes, and if you think they can have nukes, then you should be dismissed right there because you don't know what you're talking about. What's the better idea? If you're going to condemn his idea, what's the better idea? They don't have one. They just complain for profit. Now, the confusion about why we did this, was it to get rid of the nukes or was it for regime change? I'm not adding the regime change part. The administration never said that. They said it's not about regime change, but then it was Trump who added to the confusion. After his officials said, no regime change, that's not what we're doing, it's about the nukes, he put out a tweet. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Trump knows there is no will for boots on the ground, and the regime is a bunch of zealots who are all about perception, so he should have known this barb would be countered, and it was. The Ayatollah put out a tweet, or whoever tweets for him. Those who know the Iranian people and their history know that the Iranian nation is a nation that isn't a nation that surrenders. The problem with the Ayatollah's tweet is that he is not the nation's leader. He's just the regime's leader, which is a bunch of Islamist terrorists oppressing the actual people of Iran. So, what else do we know? Iran is weak. Their top military commanders have been killed. Their top nuclear scientists have been assassinated. Their nuclear sites have been damaged somewhat. Reports say at least half their missile launchers have been destroyed, and a lot of their military infrastructure is damaged. But are we in a better position than before Trump left the deal? Well, when Iran signed the nuclear deal in 2015 with 7 countries, including Iran, and I emphasize that because this idea that it was all America is BS. The idea that Obama gave them billions is BS. Part of the negotiated deal among the 7 countries was the return of money that had been held, that was Iran's, and had been held for many years. So the idea that he just gave them money is deceptive, and the truth is enough, all right? They had enriched 10,000 kilograms of uranium between 3 and 5%. That's what you use for fuel, okay? They also enriched 400 kilograms of uranium to 20%, which can be used for medical research purposes or for energy production. But it's also on the path to a bomb. And a lot of experts don't believe they were using it for medical research. Before Trump left the Iran deal, the IAEA reported that Iran was complying with the deal. And guess what? So did the Trump administration weeks before he exited. And they only had 140 kilograms of reactor-grade uranium. And they were not enriching uranium to 20% anymore. Now, this year, after he left the deal, Iran had 7,000 kilograms of reactor-grade uranium, 275 kilograms of uranium enriched to 20%. But they also had over 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. And look, they can claim they're using it for cancer treatment, but that is to cause a cancer to us. That's what they're doing. Uranium enriched to 60% is one step away from being enriched to 90%. That's nuclear weapon grade, okay? So, they've done more since Trump left the deal. And by most accounts, Iran doesn't have that much right now, even though we just bombed them because it was so urgent, which we never had proven to us. But here's now the problem. Iran on its own can't get it done, but what if they get help? What if the bombing incentivizes Russia to help them? Russia, who was part of that original deal, okay? Former Russian President Medvedev said the other countries were willing to directly supply Iran with nuclear warheads in retaliation. Trump, went at him in this cartoonish way with you're not using the N-word, meaning nuclear, are you? You're not using the N-word. Look, I can't believe that Russia would want to do that. But if they do, what a problem that would be. And the fact that the bombing has precipitated this back and forth makes you wonder about what impact it will have over time. So, economically, they have not moved on the Hormuz Strait, okay? The markets were going to tumble when the Iranian parliament called for the closure. That's 20% of the world's petro goes through there, okay? Would have been a wreck. Oil prices would have skyrocketed. But they haven't done anything yet, all right? Now, Iran reportedly warned Trump before the attacks that it could activate sleeper cells embedded within the United States to strike inside the homeland. One, why didn't he tell us that on Saturday night? That is the most important information, okay? Why? Why wouldn't you tell us that? That Iran said they're going to wake sleeper cells. You need the American people to see something and say something. And we are seeing a disturbing rise in extremism in our country. Yes, Islamist fanaticism, yes, but non-Islamists who are just becoming sympathetic to the cause, like the kids on campus who are pro-Hamas. And now this wing of the Democratic Party that is comfortable with the rhetoric of globalizing the intifada. You thought socialism was your biggest concern. Globalize the intifada? Appropriating the oppression of some perceived victim class? That's the new state of play on the political left? Really? Really? That's why there's greater risk of a lone wolf attack not having anything to do with a sleeper cell than there ever was before. Why do you say that? Look at Minnesota. Look at Boulder. Look at the Israeli embassy. Look at the IVF clinic. Look at the CEO of the healthcare company and his murder. Were any of them jihadists? No. They were disaffected American males who had a perverse reckoning that violence was okay in the pursuit of their skewed politics. Now, the media has been asking all the questions that I am right now. And yes, there's a lot of criticism of the president wrapped in there. But his third tweet is one that he should not have sent. Bashing a signature blessing of our democracy, which is the media, does not help make anything stronger, okay? And it cannot be that the pod bros are the only people that you can trust. There is no accountability. They flip-flop all over the place because they're just selling hot takes, and that's fine. I'm okay with the democratization of media. I say the more ideas, the better. But the idea that that's who you're going to go to for information? Really? That's what the president wants you to do. Why? Because they're just parroting his message, even when they go sideways on him, as some of the pod bros are right now, even calling for Trump's impeachment. They have nowhere to go. Eventually, they're going to have to come back to him, and if he slaps any one of them, their following will get cut in half. So Trump lashes out at the media for saying that the nuke sites were not totally destroyed. And only the fake news would say anything different than they were totally destroyed, listing CNN, ABC, and NBC. And then he did something that I don't understand, and I'm not even sure, I don't even think it's the first time he's done it. He calls Anderson Cooper. I don't care what Anderson said about me or, you know, how he feels about why I was fired at CNN. I like Anderson Cooper. I respect Anderson Cooper. And I'll tell you what, Anderson Cooper, as a gay man, gets my respect and protection. And calling him Allison Cooper? Come on, man. What are we, 11? I mean, not only is that it's President of the United States. President of the United States. Feminizing him because he's gay? Because you don't like what he reported? We got to be better than that. I don't care how much you want to dismiss of the president, okay? You know that's not right. You know you didn't vote for that and you didn't sign up for that. So don't say it's okay. Don't ignore it. Don't just play to advantage, okay? Calling Anderson anything but Anderson is a cheap shot that gets us nothing. Going after the media for asking real questions that we don't have the answer to is the damn job. Do we know it was obliterated? Do we know it was effective? Do we know the state of any of it? Now, if you want to say, well, we can't know yet, that's okay. That's an acceptable answer. But don't say you completely obliterated something when you're not being told that and you don't know it. Okay? And if you want to change why you bombed, that's fine. That's politics. See if you can sell it to the American people. I know you can sell it to MAGA. But we got to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. I'm telling you, all of this hate, all this constant division, even when it's gratuitous, even when you don't need it, like with what the president just did there. He had a great day if this ceasefire happens. And he's got to take a shot at somebody with a homophobic slur? Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.